Mr. Chairman. I'll try and hold things down until you get back. But thank you for scheduling a timely hearing. Governor Vilsack, thank you for your willingness to serve America's farmers and ranchers and foresters as the next Secretary of Agriculture. And congratulations to you and welcome to the committee. We look forward to working with you. Your nomination comes on the heels of a very historic period in American agriculture, which has primarily been fueled by the production of renewable energy and increased demand for America's agricultural products. And there were two historic pieces of legislation that were enacted in the last Congress, one being the new Farm Bill, the other an energy bill, which required a historic 36 billion gallons of renewable fuel by the year 2022. And there are a lot of challenges when it comes to implementing those pieces of legislation that we're currently faced with. The renewable industry, fuel industry, is really struggling. We've got a lot of plants, as you're aware of in your state as well as in mine, that have declared bankruptcy or furloughed production. Those plants that are operating are very likely operating in the red. We've had, after some good years in agriculture, so now we've got a time when we're faced with a lot of uncertainty. Land, fuel, and seed costs continue to go up. Commodity prices are down sharply. The global recession is likely to mean weakening demand for corn, soybeans, wheat, and beef this year, and most analysts are predicting a drop in net farm income for the year 2009. So you come into the job at a time when it's going to be really important that we craft policies that will keep rural America strong and keep America's energy supply secure. In that vein, I'd like to just ask a couple of questions, if I might, with regard to the renewable energy industry. I discussed with you in a previous meeting my concern about what we refer to as the blend wall, and that is the wall that we run into with E10 that is going to make it very difficult, I think, for our ethanol producers to be profitable, to operate in the black. That's a point where the supply of ethanol is going to exceed the demand, and I think part of that is a function of the fact that we only allow 10% blends. I'm very interested, as are many of my colleagues, I think the chairman as well, in seeing us move to 15 to 20% blends, as well as to develop the infrastructure that's necessary to keep the ethanol industry strong in this country. So I guess I'm curious of what your thoughts are with regard to E15, E20, and if confirmed, will you work with the Department of Energy and the EPA to approve higher blends of ethanol in the near future?
Senator, thank you for asking that question. And first of all, thank you for giving us an opportunity to reflect on the difficulties and challenges that farmers in our area of the country, and for that matter, all areas of the country, face. I think sometimes people don't appreciate and understand how difficult it is to put a crop in, that you have no control over input costs, you have no control over the weather, you have little control over what the markets will pay for your product, and so it becomes very, very difficult. That's why it is very, very important for us to look for ways to expand income opportunities for those who farm and those who ranch. One of those opportunities that was presented recently is the whole biofuels opportunity. That has raised some serious issues and some challenges, as you and I discussed in your office, about whether or not there's a linkage between our efforts to use some of our crops for fuel and rising food costs. And I think that we have to take an opportunity to address that, to educate people about the fact that there are many, many reasons why food prices have gone up that are not necessarily related to biofuels. Having said that, to meet the demand, whether it's the existing law or whether it's additional blend requirements, to meet the law will be a challenge unless we do a better job of accelerating research and development on a variety of second and third generation feedstocks for biofuels. There are issues involving the nature of those feedstocks, the processing opportunities that they present and challenges, the transportation issues that are involved, the capacity to store, storage issues that are involved. All of those have to be looked at, and I think in a very accelerated way we have to begin the process of trying to answer some of those challenges. I think USDA has a very, very important role to play in making sure that we indeed provide the research and the focus and the direction to meet whatever the requirements are. I will also say that I look forward to working with Lisa Jackson at EPA. We've had a conversation about this, and I think she recognizes the important role that EPA plays generally in agriculture, and we talked and discussed about the fact that there will be someone with agricultural background in the EPA so we can have a good dialogue and communication. So I look forward to working with her. I look forward to working with you if I'm confirmed to really doing it right in terms of second and third generation biofuels.
Among the many steps that can be taken. I will. Do you want me to recess if I 3 minutes left? Yeah, I'll get there. Yeah, if you want me to, I can just recess. If it's not back. Okay. Right. Okay. Sounds good. Among the steps that can be taken is the increasing of the blends, and I know there are a number of issues that you will have to look at, and this whole debate about food versus fuel, which I think has been exaggerated by those who are opposed to increased biofuels production in this country. But frankly, moving toward next generation biofuels, cellulosic ethanol, is going to be really important in terms of responding to those concerns and a public that I think wants to see both objectives achieved, and that is increasing use of renewables, but also keeping food cost at a reasonable level. That being said, as we move toward these other types of biomass that we can use in production of biofuels, there are some concerns that we have about EPA considering international indirect land use changes and how they do greenhouse gas analysis under the renewable fuel standard. And I guess the question would be, how should EPA measure or model such emissions and ensure that those land use changes directly related to U.S. production of ethanol are considered during the analysis? And do you agree that those types of analysis ought to be based upon the most verifiable and sound data available? I'm getting at, I know it's kind of a big picture type question, but we're very concerned about some of the metrics that might be used to determine this whether or not ethanol and greenhouse gas emissions, life cycle greenhouse gas emissions, how they are impacted by crop production patterns as we continue to grow the use of renewable energy.
Senator, I think that's one of the reasons why EPA designee Jackson came into my office to talk about the need to have someone in her department that would be able to relate and be aware of and appreciate those challenges. I must say that I have a lot to learn in this job, and you've touched on an area that I have a great deal to learn, and I hope that you'll permit me to the time, if confirmed, to learn more about this. Let me generally say there are many issues in agriculture that involve this issue of data and sound science, and I think it is important and necessary for us to indicate as a general philosophy that what we should be doing and what we should be looking at is making decisions based on sound data and sound science. That we ought to be very comfortable with the data and very comfortable with the science. It seems to me that's the only way to make a good decision. It goes back to the comments that I made in my opening statement about technology. One of the concerns I have about USDA's capacity to give you information or to allow you to do a proper oversight responsibility that you have is that it may be difficult for us to accumulate data, to obtain data with 1980-ish software. And so one of my focuses, if confirmed, will be to try to get the technology to a point where we bring it into the 21st century, we give you information and data that you can rely on and that you can make, and that we can rely on to make decisions, and that we can use to hold people accountable for the work that they do. I recognize that there have been many plans and discussions about technology, and the Department obviously has a responsibility of providing you with a plan that's realistic, that's priced properly, that is a timeline for implementation that is reasonable, and if confirmed, I intend to make sure that that happens.
Thank you, Governor. We look forward to working with you, and I now will go vote and hand it over to the Senator from Indiana. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Senator.